Welcome back to our program. As conversation in Washington now turns to taxes, tax cuts, the Bush tax cuts, and whether they should all be extended, we're happy to welcome in Congressman Thaddeus McCotter for another visit to the show. Good to talk with you again. How have you been?
Oh, how are you, Frank?
I'm very, very well, and wondering what's going to happen here. Republicans look like they're bowing their necks a little bit on the Bush tax cuts and extending them for everyone, while most Democrats are saying, well, we can't do this for the rich. Read the tea leaves for me here.
Well, it's interesting because it's not simply a partisan split on this. As you know, you have Democrats that believe raising taxes on anybody right now is the worst thing we can do in a recession. It will simply deepen it and prolong it, much like excessive government spending has deepened it and prolonged it. So what you're going to see is hopefully a coalition of Republicans and Democrats come together in supporting across-the-board tax relief to try to continue to stimulate economic growth.
So you're telling me that the party of no includes Democrats?
Well, it has been that way, Frank. As you know from watching it, the bipartisan vote against the health care, government-run health care, was bipartisan. It was Republicans and Democrats opposing it. You saw Republicans and Democrats voting against cap-and-trade. So you've seen a lot of support. It hasn't been enough because of the overwhelming Democratic majority. But you have seen Republicans and Democrats working together from the center to try to get things done. And I think that you're seeing that intensify and hopefully increase in terms of its numbers as we head closer towards November.
Is this based on local political expediency back home for these people who are doing it, or is it based on a true belief that we need to be more careful about government spending and we need to tax less?
Well, you have seen a whole lot of people that are worried about that spending. A lot of them have been right from day one, but when you're trying to build a coalition from the center, you don't worry about why people are doing the right thing.
All right, so you just accept their support. Well, I look at what's happened here just yesterday. Congressman Gary Peters joined in apparently signing a letter to Nancy Pelosi and to Steny Hoyer, the two leaders in the House. Politico got a copy of the letter, and he has signed on with several other congresspeople. And what they write, I'm going to quote here, "We believe in times of economic recovery, it makes good sense to maintain things as they are in the short term, to provide families and businesses the certainty required to plan and make sound budget decisions." And they urge the extension of all the Bush tax cuts.
Well, I think what Gary's doing is proving precisely the point that we're talking about is that there are Democrats that understand that raising taxes is the worst thing we can do. I give him credit for going on the record with it, and that's part of trying to increase the centrist coalition to make sure, again, Frank, that we don't put the American taxpayer any further in the hole, regardless of where they are. Because as you and I have discussed before, the redistributionist argument that comes across with an arbitrary number that says if you make above X, somehow you are a citizen that deserves to get more of your fruits of your labor taken by government makes no sense. No one has ever been able to tell me what the people making over that arbitrary number have done wrong so that they can be treated separately from everybody else.
Well, and they are not the wealthy. The wealthy in the country have accumulated their riches, and are the multimillionaires and billionaires are not the ones who are and I'm generalizing here, I know, which is completely wrong of me, but they're not the ones who are looking at who are living from paycheck to paycheck, and somebody who makes $250,000 a year, who's considered rich by the Obama administration, is not living in some mansion out in Beverly Hills. And so the people that you're hurting with those tax cuts are ones who still rely on weekly and monthly paychecks to raise their families, to pay for their kids' college education. That's what I'm getting at, is these people are not rich.
Yes, and it plays into the stereotypical concept of a rich person sitting on a landed estate. And even if that were the case in the United States, what you have, Frank, is that people can be land rich, dividend rich, they can be a whole lot of things rich, but that doesn't mean they're getting income.
Exactly.
To the extent that it would be taxed, which is why I think it was Senator Kerry that was pointed out about, that it wouldn't affect him because his holdings or his wealth was not tied up in direct income, which could be taxed. So when you start to think about this, the perception of who's being taxed is not accurate. It's the very type of entrepreneurs, the types of businesses and individuals that are going forward trying to grow the economy, that want to continue to expand and to develop, the very types of businesses that we need to help pull us up from the recession that we're in, that would be taxed the most, the people who are most likely to invest more quickly.
See, Congressman McCotter, my biggest concern when I hear all this talk about, we'll join you Republicans, and this is from the Democratic side, we'll join you Republicans, and we'll go against the tax cuts for wealthier taxpayers. We want to see the Bush tax cuts extended across the board, is something President Obama said too, and he just made note that he doesn't blame these people for making these decisions in their own districts, kind of like you said about politics being local. He said they're going to be taking polls of what their particular constituents are saying and trying to align with that. What worries me is they're going to align with that for the election, and then they'll change as soon as they're reelected.
Well, there's far more that goes into an election than just simply what you do in the last 40, 50 days. And there's a long record on both sides, and people will be judged on that. And the people have spoken largely already on some of the issues that have been voted on, such as health care, where still the majority has never changed. They still oppose it. And those are going to go into the decision-making process of individuals. So I think that when you look at the election, Frank, the American people are very smart. They're very practical. They know what works and what doesn't. And I don't think that this is going to necessarily be dispositive in how they vote.
Well, bank bailouts, Gallup out with a new poll. Bank bailouts, 61% disapprove. National health care, 56% disapprove. Auto bailouts, 56% disapprove. Stimulus, 52% disapprove. Only financial reform, 61% approve. Gets a nod from the public, according to Gallup. So
until the public realizes that the bank bailouts that they opposed, which people like you and I opposed, is actually going to be able to happen again under the financial regulatory reform that they passed, because they didn't get rid of too big to fail. So what you're seeing is the American public has a host of issues to make the judgments on, and when they find out more, especially about financial reform, where the Wall Street boys had their stocks go up and your opportunity and your fees go up, that's not a good combination. When they didn't get rid of the too big to fail concept, which caused the Wall Street bailout problem, which I think was one of the most unjust acts ever passed by the United States Congress, you're going to continue to see the erosion of support from the center for any type of the radical agenda that we're seeing now.
All right, and finally, I want to ask you a little insider baseball question about your own party. We've been talking about this group of 3 Republicans for a little while now, who have put together a book called Young Guns: A New Generation of Conservative Leaders, and the 3 include your whip in the House, Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, and Kevin McCarthy of California, 3 congressmen who say they've got a new plan for pushing conservative ideals and for regrowing the conservative movement. I want to get your take on the young guns. Is this a little bit of self-promotion, or are they trying to begin a movement within the party toward moving further in a conservative vein?
Well, I haven't read the book, so I can't comment on a book I haven't read. And the other part of it, Frank, is the conservative movement is, I think, anybody who's been watching has been re-energized not by people in Washington, but by the people in the streets, people in the homes across America that have come out to express their outrage at the way the federal government has infringed their rights and has infringed their property and has taken America in the wrong direction. The rebirth of the Republican Party never starts in Washington. It always starts at the grassroots. Well,
is this a way to recapture some of that grassroots and pull them within the party? Because so many of those people say they're independents.
Yes, and that's fine, too. It's about the principles, not necessarily the partisanship. So if the people want a specific agenda, they're going to get it because they're going to vote for people that way. Again, I consider that in America, it's the public that leads, and the elected officials better follow.
Well, exactly, and the question is party or ideology first,
Well, I don't believe in ideology. We've had that conversation. Conservatism is a philosophy, not an ideology.
All right,
ideology is an armed doctrine, according to Burke. It was what happened in the French Revolution. It is the antithesis to conservatism.
I'll accept that. So which is it? Is it that or is it party that comes first? Philosophy or party?
Principle comes first. If you don't have principle, you become, I think it was Dalek that said about Lyndon Johnson, he was a man of high ideals and no principles. How'd that turn out?
All right. So you don't want to talk about the young guns?
Well, I haven't read the book.
But you know these fellas.
Yeah, and I'll read their book.
All right, good deal. Thank you for the
Have you read their book?
Just parts of it. No, I edited parts of it yesterday, and then I left it at home this morning. Sad to say, I was going to bring it out and do some more reading today. So I don't have it at the office. I've read about the first quarter of it. And
how is it?
Well, I read the part where they start with a sort of a panel discussion with the three, and it's very, very fascinating. In fact, they talk about when the National Healthcare Obamacare was being passed, some of their colleagues who walked up on the House floor from the Democratic side to talk about it, discussing the third wave of progressivism is finally at hand here in the United States, and how alarmed they were by that.
Is that like the Great Lakes, the Three Sisters, where you have three massive waves and the third one's the biggest?
Yeah, well, I hope not.
Yeah.
But the three waves being the New Deal, and then Lyndon Johnson's initiative for the great cities, and now this as the third wave of progressivism, and they were alarmed by that. I don't know if you felt that way.
Oh, I just tend to take things one day at a time. It's really, look. The one thing that I will give them credit for is, two of them are older than me, so I just turned 45, so any midlife crisis has been averted by knowing that there's still a place you can be 45 and considered young.
Yeah, well, and you're not even one of the young guns. Come on, you are a young gun.
I'm bald and old adult, I prefer to be an adult.
Only as old as you feel, you know that.
Oh, no, I don't even want to think like that.
I'll talk to you later. Thanks.